We're going to talk through an example problem that involves using a markup percent to calculate your selling price. So this time, here's what my picture is going to look like. So I'm going to start with this bar, and this is going to represent, my wholesale price. So because it says a store pays $15 for a baseball cap, I'm going to put my 15 right here. And my wholesale price, my starting point, you always want to think of as 100%. Now we're going to mark this thing up by 60%. The percent markup is 60%. So now I'm going to add on to this picture. And we'll put it right there. And make sure that we are clear that this here, we're taking our 100% and we're going to mark it up. We're going to add another 60% to this. Okay, so this is our markup. And here, we'll label this. This was our wholesale price. And if something starts at 100% and we add another 60% to it, 100% plus 60% would be 160%. So the retail price is going to be 160% of my wholesale price. So over here, this is going to be our retail price. And basically, or the selling price, we want to know what that is. So this number that's going to go right here is going to answer our question. There are several ways to think this through. All right. So using our formula, we know that our part is equal to some percent of our whole. Our wholesale price is always going to be our whole amount. So I'm going to put $15 in right there. And with this percent, I have an option here. I can use 60% in there and find out the amount that I'm going to add to the $15 here. Or I could use 160% and go directly to my retail price. Let's work it out in both ways. So if I'm marking my item up by 60%, I need to find what is 60% of 15 so I can find the amount of that markup. And if I do 0.6 times 15, I'll work that out here. So I have 60%, which is 0.6 times 15. I'm at 9. So in that case, my part is $9, and this amount is going up by $9. And then I can figure out my answer. So I know that my retail price is always equal to my wholesale price plus my markup. And my wholesale price was $15. And my markup was $9. And $15 plus $9 would be $24. And that would be my retail price. Now, the other possibility here is instead of typing in this 60% for my percent, I could put in this percent, the 160%. So let's plug that in and see how it works. So from there, I want to take 160% of my whole amount, which is always my wholesale price, and 106, so that would be, in this case, it'd be 160% of 15. So the nice thing about thinking of it this way is that being that I'm using 160% here, or 1.6, the 100% of 15 would be the 15, what I'm starting with, and then the extra 60% is just added on right here. So now that's going to put these two things together. It's going to put the 1.6 combines both my starting point and my markup. So if I do 1.6 times 15, that's going to give me this 24 for my retail price. So let's see that work out with my calculator here. So I'm just going to clear this off. 1.6, whoops, 1.6 times 15. And notice that we go directly to the $24 for my retail price. Now, one more thing here is that you could think this problem through using proportions. You can say that, okay, well, if I'm marking this thing up by 60%, I'm going to mark this thing up 60 for every 100 that I start with. So how much am I marking it up? If I'm marking up 60 for every 100, how much am I marking it up for every 15? So notice that the 100% goes directly across from the $15 because this is my starting point. And then if I solve this proportion, I would cross multiply. I get 100 times x, and then we have 60 times 15, and that would be 900. And then divide both sides by 100 to get the x by itself. The x would be $9. Now, because I use 60% here, this was just the markup, okay? The markup as a percent is going to be directly across from the markup in dollars. And so this 9 is, once again, that's just my markup. Now, the other way I could set up my proportion is I could use the 160% so that I would be able to calculate my retail price directly right away, and I wouldn't have to do 15 plus 9 after this. So if I'm doing it this way and I want to know the selling price, I still have one more step. I got to add my wholesale price plus my markup to get the 24. Now, if I use 160% here, realize this would be 160 over 100. So this 160 is the 100 plus the markup of 60%. So how much would that be? And let's use a different variable. So I'll use y. How much would that be if I'm starting at 15? So if I'm marking, so with the markup included there, I'm basically paying 160 for every 100. Paying 160 for every 100 is the same as paying what for every 15? So you want to cross multiply. So you have 100 times y and 160 times 15. So we'll save a little bit of time here and just type that into our calculator. 160 times 15, what puts us at 2,400. And 100 times what number would give me 2,400? Well, dividing both sides by 100 will get me that 24 number. So my selling price for the item has to be $24. And there's the answer.